Hello everyone, I'm Jens and welcome to my new YouTube channel. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you for tuning to this premiere. But then you're probably asking yourself, what's all this about? Why there's sitting another guy in front of a camera and talking? Let me explain. Okay, on this channel I would like to talk about creativity, about people's creativity. Not so much because I'm a child of the creative industry, which is a different story at all, rather because there are so many great people out there who have a story to tell. From every corner, from every business. And along the way, you will get some impressions of my life. So let's go. For this first episode, I'd like to introduce you to amazing photographer, filmmaker, and king of Facebook, Andreas Waldschuetz. Unfortunately, he has moved recently from Berlin into the wild, so we have to travel a bit. The next train is going to leave in like 15 minutes. Not so exciting.
Gives me butterflies. I'm wondering what you got for me. Egyptian cotton is up to be my lady on me. I'm wondering what you got for me. Egyptian cotton is up to be my lady on me.
So welcome to the beautiful town of Biesenthal. My driver. This is gorgeous Mika.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the countryside.
This picture I had in my living room and like really big. But then my girlfriend moved in and I had to get rid of it. And now it's somewhere else. Let's go! So let's start with the question of the questions. How to mess up a shoot?
Actually, I never did. I think I know it sounds funny, but I actually never messed up a shoot. The only time I remember was actually quite recently, where I had technical problems, which is not my fault, but I had this camera that we're not gonna mention the name now, but I had technical issues, and through the technical issues, I was just like running late, and instead of like 8 images I wanted to produce, I only was able to shoot 4 images, which is, you know, annoying at the end of the day. In the perfect world, obviously, like, you know, you're on set and you talk to the client and you show the client the images and whether they agree or not, and they're happy or not, and then you can, you know, adapt or you can change something. I once had this situation where I did shoot underwear, you know, and this is very interesting. We booked a model, and she came, I don't know, from out of town. Apparently, the agency never told her that it was an underwear shoot, and so she was like, "No, I'm not gonna do underwear." And I'm like, "What do you mean? You just came out here? I mean."
Okay, but she was in shape, but
she was in shape. No, everything was fine with her. She was just mentally, she was like, no, I'm not gonna do underwear. No, but at the end she did it. It's all fine. So that was the first situation. The other situation was the same shoot. Since, you know, everything is digital now, I tried to, you know, get away from the digital look a little bit. So what I do normally is like I work with a longer exposure time just to get a little like motion blurry thingy in, and I did, and like the images were really nice and the client was really happy. But then turns out, like, in retouching or anything, like later on, they were zooming in, I don't know, 1,000%, and they saw this slight kind of motion blurry, you know, and then basically they blamed me for the images not being sharp, not in focus, and I'm like, that's bullshit. They're totally, I mean, you could see every little stitch on the underwear, but you just had a motion blur, which gives the image, just in my sense, a more like in more interesting, I don't know, characteristic.
But this is also kind of your like signature look, isn't it?
Very often, yeah, because what I really don't like is, I mean, to have this 100% digital look, because it's boring, you know, everything is super sharp, and like people talking about like higher resolution and even higher resolution, and everything needs to be like 1,000% like sharp and crisp, and I find that boring.
Where did this kind of signature look came from?
I think it's been sitting in me, with me. It's my you know, it's my upbringing. It's where I'm coming from. Like everything, you know, what I experienced, you know, is basically put into my work, and this is where it all gets blurry. From the very first moment, I always tried to fuck images up.
I remember this time where you moved to London.
Mm-hmm.
So you told me that there was quite a hard time because in the moment where you moved to London, you rented an apartment, and the next day you got robbed, and all the equipment and everything you had and brought to London was gone.
Was gone. Yes. Well, looking back now, it was actually like the best thing that could have happened. But back then, it was very rough. I moved from Vienna to London, having quite a lot of experience. No one really cares in London, you know. They look at you and it's like, well, that's fine, but you know, it's. I think it's different. Half a year later, a friend of mine decided to come to London. We moved together in a new apartment in Bethnal Green. Next day, we just went out for some drinks to celebrate. Hooray! You know, you're here. Let's start this great time in London. And then after a few drinks, we went back home and we opened the door. And just like everything,
the door already was open.
No. It was no, not at all. It's like there was no sign of a break-in.
Okay.
That's another funny story. But everything like I had was gone. My equipment, computer, my phones, my cameras, all my backup, like everything. Because I thought in my head, okay, I'm just gonna move to London and this is where I'm gonna stay for the rest of my life, apparently. So I took everything with me, and. Yeah, I was like, I was swimming. I was like, where I'm gonna, like, what I'm gonna do. Who am I? I have no idea, because, you know.
So you had to find yourself again.
Exactly. What is it? What you want to do? You know. I remember sitting with a laptop on the porch and like asking myself questions. Some of the questions still hasn't, you know, been answered, I guess. But fuck it.
So actually, this very bad situation has helped you a lot to concentrate on your new life, on your new goals, and to like restructure yourself in terms of where do you want to go to and what do you want to do.
Completely, yes. And sometimes it takes just like a really hard sign from, I call it the universe, basically slapping you in the face, then sometimes it needs a fucking punch, and that was like the biggest punch ever.
Look at this! This is the private Waldschuetz lake, right?
Hell yeah.
If you start a new job, if a client asking for, I don't know, fashion shoot or whatever, how do you start the process?
Well, it depends. Like if it's a free project or a client. A client, most of the times approaches you with, there's this thing we need. There's like a theme. There's we need like a lookbook, or we need I don't know, like a campaign shoot or like an advertising campaign, yada yada yada, where everything is basically like lined up already. So there's normally like there's a theme, and then you start, your own little head cinema, as we say in German, Kopfkino. And so you do this, like a little.
And is this all intuitive, or is it like you start with a mood board, or?
It's either way. It's sometimes, I had, for instance, I had this client from Austria. It's a company that produces windows, like very high profile windows. And so they had this idea and basically invited several photographers to basically send in their ideas or like their interpretations. So what I did, I did my own mood board. I listened to music. Yeah, it takes like a few days, and then like music and like the ideas like create images. And so I sent them my mood board, and they really loved my mood board and said, I was one of the photographers that basically like thought a little bit like further than just like, okay, well, this is the idea what we're gonna do now, because I was basically looking ahead. Okay, well, this is the campaign now, but what could it look like maybe in like a year or in 2 years from now?
So being ahead of the game,
exactly.
and even there, like the idea is king.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, a mood board is always very helpful, because you put together several like inspirational images, and then you send it off to the client. The client says, "Wow, that looks cool. That this is way too abstract." Yada yada. So you find out immediately, like where the client is basically like situated, and where you can pick him up. I'm sure there's artists out there, like photographers, like really big names, they just do whatever they want to do, and the client, they don't really have any say. I mean,
but most of the time you really have to convince the client for your certain idea, or
I mean, a lot of times, because in the first place, like a lot of clients think, oh my god, we're going to do something really funky this time, and then you start giving them like really funky ideas, and then they're like, oh, well, maybe that's too funky.
A bit too funky.
This is like a little bit too funky. Let's like turn it down, and which is fair.
And I got the feeling that, especially within the last 10 or 15 years, the advertising photography has changed a lot, because clients don't spend so much money into it, because it's easy to buy a stock photo from Getty Images or from Shutterstock or from wherever.
They definitely I've had that happen, that companies tell me, what, we really don't need you this year, because we have some bloggers coming, and they're taking care of the images, which is sad, but that's just the way it is, and this is what we have to deal with. And I think we have to adjust and see like how we're gonna do in the future, because obviously I think like quality is quality, and if you have some random blogger taking pictures with an iPhone, which is fair enough, it's legit, but then you compare the images what photographers do for like advertising campaigns. I mean, it's day and night.
Specific photographer that you really like at the moment?
I really like Gregory Crutzen. I really love Tim Walker. There's Stephen Klein. I mean, there's like a lot of big names.
Yeah, sure.
I really like, Gloria Sigismondi. She's very inspiring from the very early days on, because she's not only a photographer, she's a director as well, and she creates amazing images.
You would give advice to a young person would like to become a photographer, what would you tell them?
Just like do it. Don't hesitate. Take a camera, go out, fuck around. Give it Pretty dark.
It's pretty dark, but it's getting brighter.
Maybe we should turn around.
Do you know that we have one thing in common?
A beard?
Obviously, but there's another thing. No driver's license.
Oh. Let me look pretty. Bin schon sehr, sehr gespannt. Ich möchte aber ein Studio.
I'm not sure if I'm sitting here in the first class. Back in Berlin. And as you guys have made it to the very end of the first episode, I would highly appreciate if you leave a comment, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and then we see us on Wednesday for the next episode. I'm out.